A gang leader stepped out of his car and shoved Steven Seagal against a brick wall. The sound of Steven's back hitting the rough surface echoed through the empty street. "You don't belong in this neighborhood, old man. Walk away, or crawl." The gang leader's breath reeked of cigarettes and cheap whiskey. His gold chains rattled as he pressed harder against Steven's chest. Steven didn't flinch. He didn't push back. He didn't even raise his voice. He just smiled. A calm, quiet smile that made the gang leader's confidence waver for just a split second. Sometimes the quietest man in the room is the most dangerous. The gang leader laughed, but it sounded forced now. Uncertain. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know, was that Steven wasn't just an actor who played tough guys in movies. He was a 7th-degree black belt in Aikido, a former martial arts instructor who had trained CIA agents, SWAT teams, and law enforcement officers across multiple countries. Someone who had faced real danger, real violence, real threats that most people only see on a screen. And what happened in the next 60 seconds left everyone on that street speechless. Some pulled out their phones. Others backed away slowly. One guy whispered, "Oh man, he messed with the wrong dude." But before we get there, before I show you what Steven did that night, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Are you in the US, UK, India, Brazil, the Philippines? I want to know. And if you've ever stayed calm when someone tried to intimidate you, when someone thought they could push you around just because you didn't react, type Xiaom below. Let's see who the real warriors are. It was a cold Friday night in South Brooklyn. The kind of night where the streetlights flicker like they're about to give up, where the air smells like rain mixed with motor oil and old concrete. The kind of night where most people know better than to walk alone, especially in this neighborhood. But Steven Seagal wasn't most people. He had just finished visiting a small martial arts dojo, tucked between a laundromat and a closed-down bodega, a place he used to teach at decades ago, back before Hollywood, before the fame, before anyone outside the martial arts world knew his name, back when he was just a sensei with calloused knuckles and a passion for teaching discipline and respect. Now he was walking back to his car, hands in his jacket pockets, head down, moving like a shadow through the dim streets. No security, no entourage, no cameras following him, just a man in jeans and boots blending into the darkness. Before we continue, pause right here and tell me in the comments where you're watching this from. I really want to know. Drop your city or country below. Let's see how far this story reaches. That's when he heard the engines low, rumbling, getting closer. 3 black SUVs rolled up slow, their headlights cutting through the fog like predator eyes in the dark. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened with heavy thuds. 8 men stepped out, leather jackets, thick chains hanging from their necks, tattoos crawling up their arms and throats like war paint. They moved with the kind of swagger that comes from years of never being challenged. At the center of the group was a man they called Vince, the Viper, Caruso, local enforcer, street legend. The kind of guy who made his living off fear and reputation. Vince had controlled these blocks for years: extortion, protection rackets, loan sharking. If a business wanted to stay open, they paid him. If someone caused trouble, Vince made sure they regretted it. He wasn't just muscle, he was smart, calculated, dangerous, and he had heard a rumor that some Hollywood clown had been spotted around the neighborhood, talking to the old dojo owner about reopening the gym for local kids who couldn't afford fancy training centers. That gym sat on prime real estate, property that Vince had plans for, and Vince didn't like interference. He didn't like people coming into his territory and playing hero. So when he saw Steven walking alone, he saw an opportunity, a chance to send a message. Drop a like right now if you think Vince is about to regret this decision. Let's see those likes light up. Vince walked up to Steven with slow, deliberate steps, cracking his knuckles like he was warming up for a workout. His crew fanned out behind him, blocking the sidewalk, trapping Steven. "You lapa." Steven looked up. His face was calm, neutral. No fear in his eyes, just passing through. Vince smirked, tilting his head like he was sizing up prey. "Yeah, well, this street has a toll, and you look like you can afford it." The other men laughed, sharp, mocking sounds that echoed off the brick walls. One of them pulled out his phone and started recording. Steven glanced at the camera, then back at Vince. "I don't want any trouble." Too late for that, old man. Vince shoved him hard back against the alley wall. The force was sudden, aggressive, meant to humiliate. Steven's head hit the brick with a dull thud. His jacket scraped against the rough surface. But his expression didn't change. No anger flashed in his eyes. No fear tightened his jaw. No panic quickened his breath. Just patience. The kind of patience that comes from decades of training. From knowing exactly what you're capable of. From understanding that violence is a last resort, not a first reaction. Comment RIGHT Nando. Are you Team Steven or Team Vince? Let me know who you're rooting for. And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. Vince leaned in close, so close Steven could smell the cologne mixed with sweat. Walk away now, Vince hissed, his voice low and threatening. Or we make sure you never walk again. Steven tilted his head slightly, his eyes locking onto Vince's with an intensity that made the enforcer blink. You know, I've been threatened by a lot of people in my life. Some of them were soldiers. Some were fighters. Some were actually dangerous. Vince's smirk widened. And Steven's voice dropped to almost a whisper. And none of them ended the night the way they started it. The crew went quiet for a second. The camera kept rolling. Vince's smile faded just a little, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. Not here, not in front of his guys, not on camera. Before we continue, pause and comment WAR if you think Steven's about to teach a lesson, or Whaleka why if you think he should have just left. Let's see what you believe. And seriously, drop your location below. I'm reading every single comment. The tension was thick. The street was silent except for the hum of the SUV engines. And then, everything exploded. Vince grabbed Steven by the collar with both hands and pulled him forward violently. His knuckles were white from gripping the fabric so tight. You think you're tough? You think because you played a cop in some movie, you can talk to me like that? His face was inches from Steven's now, veins bulging in his neck, spit flying with every word. The crew behind him started hyping him up. Yeah, Vince, show him. Teach this old man some respect. He don't know who he's messing with. Steven didn't resist. He didn't try to pull away or fight back. He just let Vince hold him there, his breathing steady and controlled, his eyes locked onto Vince's with an unnerving calmness, like he'd been in this exact situation 100 times before. I don't think I'm tough, Steven said quietly, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. I just know what happens when people mistake silence for weakness. Drop a likey if you're still watching. And comment where you're from. I want to see how global this audience is. Vince laughed loud, mocking, theatrical. He turned to his crew, arms spread wide like a showman. Boys, we got ourselves a philosopher. This guy thinks he's in a kung fu movie. The crew erupted in laughter, slapping each other's backs, pointing at Steven like he was a joke. The guy with the phone zoomed in closer, capturing every second. The camera was still recording. And then Steven said something that made everyone freeze. You're Vince Caruso, right? Vince's laughter stopped mid-breath. His smile remained, but his eyes narrowed. Yeah. So what? Used to run with the Gallo crew back in the day. East New York. Late 90s. The street went silent. Vince's grip on Steven's collar loosened slightly. His face shifted from amusement to confusion. And then to suspicion. How the hell do you know that? Steven's expression didn't change. Still calm. Still in control. Because I trained your cousin Marco. Taught him Aikido in '92, right before he straightened his life out and moved to Boston. Vince blinked, his mind racing. Marco never mentioned you. He wouldn't. I told him not to. Steven paused, letting that sink in. But he did tell me about you. Said you had a temper. Said you were smart but dangerous. And that you never knew when to stop. Comment Marsro, if you remember when Steven mentioned training someone earlier. Let's see who's paying attention. And Agar are you are from. Seriously, I want to know. Vince's face flushed red. His jaw clenched. This wasn't going the way he planned. You trying to psych me out, old man? No, Steven said softly. I'm trying to give you a way out. Vince's pride exploded. Hey, wait, oh, you think I need why you two? But before he could finish, Steven made his move. Gently, almost too gently to notice, Steven placed his hand on Vince's wrist, the one gripping his collar. It wasn't forceful. It wasn't a strike. It wasn't even aggressive, just a touch, a precise calculated touch, and then, in one fluid motion that happened so fast the camera barely caught it, Steven twisted his body to the side, rotated Vince's arm at the elbow joint using leverage and angle, and suddenly Vince's entire world flipped upside down. His knees buckled, his balance shattered, and before he even understood what was happening, Vince was on his knees, gasping for air, his wrist locked in a submission hold so tight, and so perfectly executed that he couldn't move without risking a broken bone. The pain shot up his arm like lightning. He tried to pull away, couldn't. Tried to stand, couldn't. Tried to curse, could barely breathe. The crew stepped back, eyes wide, mouths open. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The guy holding the phone almost dropped it. And comment your country. Let's make this global. Stephen leaned down slightly, his voice calm as ever, like he was teaching a class. Aikido isn't about strength, Vince. It's about redirection. You came at me with force, so I just gave it back to you. That's all. He held the lock for 3 more seconds, just long enough to make his point. Then he released. Vince stumbled backward, clutching his wrist, gasping, his face twisted in pain and humiliation. His crew didn't help him up. They just stared. Stephen straightened his jacket, brushing off the dirt from where he'd been shoved against the wall. You should get that wrist checked, Stephen said. It'll swell if you don't ice it. Vince's face went from red to purple, rage. Pure, unfiltered rage. You're DA'd. You hear me? DA'd. His voice cracked as he screamed it. Stephen didn't respond. He just turned and started walking toward his car, parked half a block away, calm, unbothered, like nothing had happened. Like he'd just finished a casual conversation. Comment Legandi if you're absolutely hooked right now. And PLES, tell me where you're watching from. I read every comment. That's when one of the guys in the crew, a big dude with a shaved head and a metal bat in his hand, decided he'd had enough. He stepped forward, eyes locked on Stephen's back. Where you think you're going? The bat swung. Fast, vicious, aimed right at Stephen's head. A blow that could crack a skull. Stephen didn't even turn around fully. He just ducked smooth, controlled, like he'd sensed it coming before it even happened. The bat whooshed over his head, missing by inches. Stephen sidestepped, grabbed the bat mid-swing with one hand, and used the attacker's own momentum against him. He spun the guy around like a dancer leading a partner, then swept his legs out from under him. The big guy crashed face, first onto the pavement with a sickening thud. The bat clattered to the ground, spinning in circles before coming to a stop. Stephen picked it up, looked at it, then tossed it into a nearby dumpster without a word. I don't need weapons, Stephen said, his voice barely above a whisper. And neither do you? Silence. Complete, stunned silence. Now comment below Legend if you're hooked, or fakey if you think this is too Hollywood. Let's see who believes. And where are you from? Drop it below. Vince was on his feet now, chest heaving, eyes wild with fury and humiliation. His wrist was throbbing. His pride was shattered. And worst of all, it had all been caught on camera. Every second. Every moment of him getting taken down by a man twice his age. This wasn't just a loss. This was a permanent stain on his reputation. And in his world, reputation was everything. You just made the worst mistake of your life, old man. His voice shook not from fear, but from pure, uncontrolled rage. He pulled out his phone with his good hand, the other one still clutching his swollen wrist. He didn't even look at the screen. Just hit speed dial. The call connected after one ring. Yeah, it's me, Vince said, his voice tight. I need backup. Now, corner of Atlantic and Hoyt, and tell Sal, tell him it's personal. He hung up. Then he turned to his crew, who were still standing there in shock, unsure of what to do next. Nobody moves. Nobody lets him leave. We wait. Likey this video if you can feel the tension rising. And comment where you're watching from. United States, Canada, UK, Australia, Philippines, India. I want to know. Stephen didn't run. He didn't panic. He didn't even look concerned. He just leaned casually against his car, arms crossed over his chest, his face calm and unreadable, like he was waiting for a bus, not a mob. One of the crew members whispered, "Yo, why isn't he scared?" Another one muttered, "Maybe he's crazy." But Vince knew better. This wasn't crazy. This was confidence. The kind of confidence that only comes from knowing, truly knowing, that you can handle whatever's coming. And that terrified Vince more than anything else. 2 minutes passed. The street was silent except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional flicker of the broken streetlight above. Then they heard it. The low rumble of another engine, a black Mercedes SUV, sleek, expensive, blacked-out windows, pulled up slowly and stopped right in the middle of the intersection. The door opened, and out stepped a man who made Vince look like a foot soldier. Comment boss if you know something big is about to go down. And seriously, where are you watching from? Drop your location. This was Sal Romano. Tall, mid-50s. Slick-back silver hair. Expensive tailored coat that probably cost more than most people's rent. Italian leather shoes so polished they reflected the streetlights. He moved with the kind of authority that didn't need to be announced. Everyone just knew. Sal Romano had been running organized operations in Brooklyn for over 20 years. Judges knew his name. Cops looked the other way. Business owners paid him without being asked twice. He controlled everything from construction contracts to nightclub protection to underground gambling rings. He wasn't just powerful, he was untouchable, and he didn't tolerate disrespect. He walked up to Stephen with slow, measured steps, his cold eyes scanning him from head to toe like he was evaluating a piece of merchandise. Vince stood off to the side, still cradling his wrist, waiting for Sal to deliver justice. Sal stopped a few feet away from Stephen and tilted his head slightly. "You're the guy causing problems for my people." His voice was smooth, controlled, almost polite, but there was ice underneath it. Stephen met his eyes without flinching. No fear, no submission, no hesitation. "I'm the guy who doesn't like being pushed around."
Dear Opialike, if Stephen's boldness is giving you chills.
"And tell me, what country are you in right now?" Sal smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the smile of a predator sizing up prey. "You know who I am?" "I do." "Then you know I could make you disappear. Tonight, right here, and no one would ever find you." Stephen nodded slowly, his expression unchanged. "You could try." The air went electric. Vince's eyes widened. The crew shifted nervously, hands moving toward concealed weapons. Even the guy still filming looked like he was second, guessing whether this was worth recording. But Sal didn't explode. He didn't yell. He just raised one hand, a small, casual gesture. "Relax." Immediately his men backed off, hands moving away from their waistbands. Sal's control was absolute. He pulled out a silver cigarette case, took one out, and lit it with a vintage lighter. He took a slow drag, exhaling smoke into the cold night air. "Vince says you put hands on him." "That true?" Stephen didn't look at Vince. He kept his eyes on Sal. "He put hands on me first. I just returned the favor." Sal studied him for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he did something no one expected. He laughed, not mocking, not cruel, just genuinely amused. A deep, rumbling chuckle that made Vince's face turn red with embarrassment. "Comment respite if you think Sal just earned a little of yours." "And doubly a share of to our Cayenne to Ram."
"I'm counting every location you got. I'll give you that,"
Sal said, still smiling. "Most people piss themselves when they see me. I've seen grown men cry. I'm not most people." "No," Sal agreed, his smile fading slightly. "No, you're not." He circled Stephen slowly, like a shark evaluating whether something's worth the effort. "I've heard about you. Seagal, right? The movie guy? Martial arts. Tough guy act." "It's not an act." Sal stopped circling and stood directly in front of him again. "We'll see." He snapped his fingers once. From behind the SUV, a man emerged, bigger than anyone else on that street, easily 6'5", maybe 280 pounds, arms like tree trunks. Neck like a bull. His knuckles were scarred. His nose had been broken more than once. This wasn't some street thug. This was a fighter.
"Likey, if you're nervous for Stephen right now."
"And comment your city or country."
"Let's see how far this video reaches. This is Dante,"
Sal said casually, like he was introducing a colleague at a business meeting. Former heavyweight boxer, fought semi-pro for 8 years. Broke a man's jaw with one punch last month. Put him in the hospital for 3 weeks. Dante stepped forward, cracking his neck from side to side. The sound echoed like snapping wood. He stared down at Stephen with dead, emotionless eyes. "Nothing personal, old man." Stephen didn't move, didn't step back, didn't tense up. He just looked up at Dante and said quietly, "It never is." The crew formed a loose circle, phones out, ready to record the beating. Vince smiled for the first time since getting humiliated. Sal took another drag from his cigarette, watching with detached curiosity. And then Dante moved. He threw a massive right hook, the kind of punch that ends bar fights in one swing. The kind of punch that has put men on the canvas unconscious. A haymaker with 280 pounds of muscle behind it. It came at Stephen's head like a freight train, and Stephen shifted his weight, angled his body just slightly, and let the punch sail past his ear by inches. The wind from the swing ruffled his hair, but the fist never connected.
"Comment Matrax if that just blew your mind. And Delasharo Ephraim, let me know."
Before Dante could recover, before he could even pull his arm back, Stephen grabbed the extended arm with both hands, stepped in close to Dante's body, dropped his center of gravity, and used a classic Aikido hip throw. He used Dante's own momentum, his own power, his own aggression, and flipped all 280 pounds of muscle over his shoulder. Dante's eyes went wide. For a split second he was airborne. And then, Shiresh, He slammed onto the asphalt with a thunderous impact that shook the ground. The sound echoed off every building on the block. Car alarms went off. Dante lay there, groaning. Dazed, his eyes unfocused, struggling to understand what just happened. Stephen stood over him, breathing steady, not even winded. Size doesn't matter if you're off balance. Diaro Palabagi if you're absolutely hokeded! And comment where you're watching from. I'm reading Evrar single one. Sal's expression changed. The amusement was gone. The casual confidence was gone. This wasn't a movie stunt. This wasn't choreography. This was real. He dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his shoe. All right, Sal said slowly, his voice colder now. You've made your point? Stephen turned to face him. Sal's eyes narrowed. Walk away now. And we forget this happened. Stephen shook his head. What about the dojo? Sal frowned. What about it? You've been pressuring the owner to sell, threatening his family, sending your guys to intimidate the parents who bring their kids there. I want that to stop. Sal's jaw tightened. That's not your business. Stephen took a step closer. It is now. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Sal stared at him. Stephen stared back. And then Sal did something unexpected again. He smiled. You really don't care, do you? About who I am. About what I can do. I care about what's right. Sal stared at him for a long, long time. Then he nodded once. Fine, the dojo stays. But you owe me. Stephen shook his head. I don't owe you anything. Sal's smile disappeared. Then we're not done. He turned and walked back to his Mercedes. But before he got in, he looked over his shoulder one last time. You're either very brave or very stupid. Stephen didn't answer. He just got in his car and drove away. Drop a comment, brave or stupid? What do you think Stephen is?
And moo you're a wagline from him. Let's light up the comments.
3 days later, Stephen got a call, unknown number. He stared at the screen for a moment, debating whether to answer. Then he pressed accept. Mr. Seagal. The voice was female. Professional. Who's this? My name is Detective Laura Chen, NYPD. I need to speak with you. In person, it's important. Stephen paused. About what? About Sal Romano. And about what happened on Atlantic and Hoyt 3 nights ago. Stephen's jaw tightened slightly. I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Seagal. Detective Chen said, her voice firm but not aggressive. We have video, we have witnesses, and we know you walked away from a confrontation with one of the most dangerous men in Brooklyn. So please, don't insult my intelligence. Stephen was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. Where do you want to meet? They met at a diner in Midtown Manhattan, one of those old-school 24-hour spots with cracked red vinyl booths, fluorescent lights, and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting on the burner since yesterday. Detective Chen was already sitting in a corner booth when Stephen arrived. Mid-30s. Sharp eyes. Hair pulled back in a tight bun. Plain clothes but clearly law enforcement. The way she sat, the way she scanned the room. The way her hand rested near her hip where her service weapon probably was. Stephen slid into the booth across from her. She didn't waste time with small talk. She slid a manila folder across the table. Open it. Stephen did. Inside were surveillance photos. Dozens of them. Sal Romano meeting with known criminals. Sal shaking hands with politicians. Sal entering buildings that were fronts for illegal operations. There were financial records, wiretap transcripts, incident reports, years of investigation, all compiled in one folder. I've been investigating Sal Romano for 2 years, Detective Chen said, her voice low. Extortion, racketeering, loan sharking, witness intimidation, money laundering. We know he's dirty. We know he controls half of Brooklyn's underground economy. She leaned forward. But every time we get close, evidence disappears. Witnesses recant their statements. Judges suddenly rule in his favor. Key files go missing from evidence lockers. Comment cop rate if you think the system is broken. And why are you wet? Drop your location below. Stephen closed the folder and pushed it back toward her. And you're telling me this because... Detective Chen's eyes locked onto his. Because you did in 3 minutes what we couldn't do in 2 years. Stephen raised an eyebrow.
What's that?
You stood up to him. You embarrassed him. You put one of his best enforcers on his knees and knocked out his top enforcer. And you walked away. She paused. People don't walk away from Sal Romano. They either work for him, pay him, or disappear. Stephen leaned back in the booth. I'm not a cop, detective. I know. But you're someone he respects. Or at least someone he fears. And that makes you valuable? Valuable how? Detective Chen took a breath. I want you to wear a wire. The words hung in the air like a grenade, Stephen stared at her. You're serious. Dead serious. She pulled out another document, this one with official NYPD letterhead. Sal Romano is planning something big. A meeting with representatives from 3 major crime families. East Coast operations. We've been tracking communications for weeks. It's happening soon. She slid the document toward him. If we can get evidence, real, hard, admissible evidence of what they're planning, we can bring them all down. Racket charges. Federal prosecution. This could dismantle organized crime in Brooklyn for a generation. Likey if you think Stephen should do it. And comment your country or city. Let's make this global. Stephen didn't touch the document. And if I say no? Detective Chen's expression hardened. Then nothing changes. Sal keeps running this city. People keep getting extorted. Businesses keep getting blood dry. Families keep getting threatened. Kids keep losing their parents to violence and fear. Her voice cracked slightly, just for a second, before she regained control. I became a cop because I thought I could make a difference. But guys like Romano, they make me feel like the whole system is rigged. She looked directly into Stephen's eyes. You have a chance to actually change something, to help people who can't help themselves. Stephen was quiet for a long time. He stared at the folder, at the photos, at the evidence of years of corruption and violence. Then he stood up. I'll think about it. Detective Chen's face fell slightly. Mr. Seagal, we don't have much time. The meeting is. I said I'll think about it. His tone was firm but not harsh. He walked out of the diner, leaving Detective Chen sitting alone in the booth, staring at the untouched coffee in front of her. Common HRO if you think he should help, or mess talk if you think he should stay out of it.
I know what you would do. And where are you from?
Stephen drove home in silence. His mind was racing. He'd spent years trying to leave this kind of thing behind. The violence, the danger, the life or death situations. He'd done his time. Trained agents. Worked with law enforcement. Faced down threats that most people couldn't even imagine. And he'd walked away from all of it to find peace. But now he was being asked to step back into the fire. Not for money, not for fame, not for glory, but because it was the right thing to do. He pulled into his driveway, turned off the engine, and sat there in the dark. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Think carefully, Mr. Seagal. People who cross Sal Romano don't live long enough to regret it. He stared at the message. Then he deleted it. And he made his decision. Dear Opaliki, if you're on the edge of your seat right now, and comment where you're watching from. I'm reading either I comment. The next morning, Stephen called Detective Chen. She answered on the first ring. Detective Chen. I'm in. There was a pause. Then he heard her exhale. Relief, surprise, maybe both. Thank you. I thank you. Don't thank me yet, Stephen said. Just tell me what I need to do. They met again that afternoon. This time in an unmarked NYPD van parked 2 blocks from Sal Romano's social club. Inside, the van was filled with surveillance equipment. Monitors, recording devices. 2 tech specialists were running diagnostics. Detective Chen handed Stephen a small device, barely the size of a shirt button. This is the wire. It's hidden in your jacket lining. State of the art. Records everything. Transmits in real time to us. She showed him how it worked, where it was positioned, how to activate it without anyone noticing. Just act natural. Get him talking. Ask questions. Let him brag. Guys like Romano love to talk when they think they're in control. Stephen nodded. And if he searches me? Detective Chen's expression darkened. Then you're on your own. We can't risk blowing the operation by intervening too early. She met his eyes. If things go south, you get out. Immediately. Don't try to be a hero. Stephen almost smiled at that. Little late for that advice, don't you think? Comment down gross if you think this is about to go wrong. And Gyaro Arfam. Let's see the global reach. An hour later, Stephen stepped out of the van and walked toward Romano's social club. It was a classic old-school spot. Brick exterior, tinted windows, a single door with no sign. The kind of place you only entered if you were invited, or if you had a death wish. 2 guards stood outside, big guys, arms crossed, eyes scanning the street. Stephen walked up casually, hands in his pockets. Sal's expecting me. The guards looked at each other. Then one of them nodded. Hands up. Stephen raised his arms. They patted him down, quick, routine, professional. They checked his jacket, his pockets, his waistband. Stephen's heart was calm, steady. The wire was expertly hidden. One of the guards ran his hands along the jacket lining, right over where the device was concealed. Stephen didn't flinch, didn't tense, didn't even breathe differently. The guard stepped back. He's clean. They missed it. Like if your heart is racing right now. And comment where you're from, seriously. I want to know. The door opened. Stephen stepped inside. The club was dim, smoky, old-school Italian, dark wood paneling, leather chairs. A bar in the corner with top-shelf bottle lined up like soldiers. A few men sat around playing cards. Others talked in low voices, and at a corner table, glass of scotch in hand, sat Sal Romano. He looked up as Stephen approached, and he smiled. Seagal. Didn't think you'd actually show. Stephen sat down across from him. You said we weren't done. So here I am. Sal studied him for a long moment, swirling the scotch in his glass. You're different from most people I meet. Most people want something: money, power, protection, respect. He took a sip. Stephen met his eyes. I already have respect. From who? From myself. Sal smiled, a genuine smile this time. I like you. I really do. But you've put me in a very difficult position. How's that? Sal leaned back in his chair. People are talking. Word gets around fast in my world. And the word is, Sal Romano got embarrassed by some actor, that I let you walk after you disrespected my crew. After you put Vince on his knees, he set down his glass. Perception is everything in this business, Mr. Seagal. And right now, my perception is damaged. Comment tense if you can feel the danger building. And do I water from? Drop it below. Stephen didn't respond. He just waited. Sal leaned forward. So here's the deal. You work for me. Stephen raised an eyebrow. Doing what? Security. Consulting. You teach my guys some of that martial arts stuff. Make them look good. Make me look good. Show everyone that you're not my enemy. You're my asset. He smiled. It's a win-win. You get paid. I get my reputation back. Everyone's happy. And if I refuse? Sal's smile disappeared. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Then I make an example out of you. His voice was ice. And trust me, nobody forgets my examples.
Likey if you're hooked.
And comment your location.
Let's see how many countries are watching.
Stephen didn't blink. Didn't look away. You could try. The room went completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Every card game froze. Sal's men shifted in their seats, hands moving slowly toward concealed weapons. The tension was suffocating. But Sal raised one hand, calm, controlled. Relax. Immediately the tension eased. Sal reached under the table and pulled out a briefcase. He set it on the table between them and opened it. Inside, stacks of cash, neatly bundled. 50s and hundreds, $50,000, Sal said. Chash. Just for showing up tonight. No strings. Just a gesture of respect. He pushed the briefcase closer. And if you say yes to my offer, there's a lot more where that came from. Stephen looked at the money. Then at Sal. I don't need your money. Sal laughed, but there was no humor in it. Everyone needs money, Mr. Seagal. Not me. Sal's expression darkened. Then what do you need? Stephen leaned forward. I need you to leave that dojo alone. Permanently. No more threats. No more pressure. You walk away and let those kids train in peace. Sal stared at him. Then he laughed again, louder this time. That again. You really care that much about some rundown gym? I care about the kids who train there. The ones you're trying to push out so you can flip the property for profit. Sal's jaw tightened. His fingers drummed on the table. You're making this personal. Stephen's voice was quiet but firm. It already was. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Then Sal stood up slowly. You've got 24 hours, Mr. Seagal. Take the money. Work for me. Or. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Stephen stood too. Do what you have to do. He turned and walked toward the door. Detective Chen's voice crackled faintly in his hidden earpiece. Stephen. We got it. That's enough. Get out of there. But as Stephen reached for the door handle, gunshots.
Type danger if you're still watching.
Let's see who's hooked.
And where are you from?
The gunshots exploded through the night like thunder. Glass shattered. Wood splintered. The front windows of the social club erupted in a storm of bullets. Stephen hit the ground on pure instinct, his body reacting before his mind even processed what was happening. Tables flipped. Chairs scattered. Men dove for cover, shouting, cursing, reaching for weapons. The shots weren't coming from inside. They were coming from outside. This wasn't Sal's doing. This was an attack. Someone was trying to take Sal out. GTO. One of Sal's men screamed, pulling out a pistol and returning fire through the broken windows. More gunfire erupted. A full-on firefight in the middle of a Brooklyn street. Stephen rolled behind the bar, his heart pounding, adrenaline flooding his system. Detective Chen's voice crackled frantically in his earpiece.
Stephen! What's happening? We're hearing gunfire! We're under attack.
Stephen hissed, keeping his head down as bullets tore through the air above him.
Get out of there now.
We're sending backup. But Stephen couldn't move. Not yet, because through the chaos, through the smoke and broken glass, he saw something. Likey this video right now if
Your heart is receiving.
and comment where you're watching from. I need to see that global support. A kid, maybe 16 years old, standing frozen in the middle of the street outside, caught in the crossfire between Sal's crew and whoever was attacking. His eyes were wide with terror. His body paralyzed by fear. He must have been walking by when the shooting started. Wrong place, wrong time. And now he was about to die. Stephen saw a gunman across the street pivot, gun swinging toward the kid. No time to think. No time to plan. Stephen exploded from behind the bar, sprinting full speed through the shattered doorway and into the street. Bullets whizzed past him. One grazed his jacket. He felt the heat, felt the tear in the fabric, but he didn't stop. He grabbed the kid by the shoulders, yanked him down, and pulled him behind a parked car, just as another volley of shots tore through the space where they'd been standing. The car's windows exploded. Metal pinged as bullets ricocheted. Stephen covered the kid with his body, shielding him. Stay down, Stephen shouted over the chaos. Don't move. The kid was shaking violently, hyperventilating, tears streaming down his face. Who are you? Someone who's really tired of getting shot at. Common HR if Stephen just earned your respect.
Drop your country or city.
Stephen assessed the situation with the speed and precision of someone who'd been in combat before. 2 shooters across the street. Professional. Organized. This wasn't some random gang violence. This was a hit. Sal's men were firing back from inside the club, but they were pinned down. The attackers had the advantage. Better position, better cover, element of surprise. Stephen saw one of the shooters reloading. Small window of opportunity. He moved, fast, low. Using the parked cars as cover, Stephen closed the distance between himself and the first shooter in seconds. The guy never saw him coming. Stephen came up behind him, grabbed the gun hand, twisted it violently at the wrist. The same joint lock he'd used on Vince, and the weapon clattered to the pavement. Before the shooter could react, Stephen delivered a palm strike to the solar plexus that dropped him like a stone, gasping for air. One down. The second shooter spotted Stephen and spun around. Raising his weapon, Stephen dove behind a dumpster as bullets sparked off the metal. Then silence. The shooter was moving, trying to flank him. Stephen listened. Footsteps. Heavy. Getting closer. Breathing. Controlled but tense. The shooter rounded the corner, and Stephen was already moving. He grabbed the gun barrel with one hand, pushing it away from his body, and delivered a devastating elbow strike to the shooter's jaw. The man's head snapped back. His knees buckled. Stephen followed up with a sweep that took his legs out completely. The shooter hit the ground hard. Stephen disarmed him, ejected the magazine, and tossed both pieces in opposite directions.
2 down. Likey, if that was INC Radabio.
And comment where you're from. I'm counting every single location. Sirens wailed in the distance. Getting closer. The police were coming. Sal's men emerged from the club cautiously, weapons still drawn, scanning for more threats. And then Sal himself appeared, stepping through the shattered doorway, his expensive coat dusty and torn, a cut above his eyebrow bleeding slightly. But he was alive. He looked at the 2 unconscious shooters on the ground, then at Stephen, standing calmly in the middle of the street, breathing hard but steady. Then at the kid, still hiding behind the car, safe. Sal's expression was unreadable. He walked slowly toward Stephen, his men forming a protective circle around him. For a moment, nobody spoke. The only sounds were the distant sirens and the ringing in everyone's ears from the gunfire. Then Sal said something that shocked everyone. You saved my life. Stephen shook his head. I saved a kid. You just happened to be nearby. Sal stared at him for a long moment. Then, for the first time since Stephen had met him, Sal looked genuinely vulnerable, almost human. Why? Stephen met his eyes. Because it was the right thing to do. And comment repeat if you felt that moment.
And my freedom. Let's light up the comments.
Sal holstered his weapon slowly. He looked at the kid, still trembling behind the car, then back at Stephen. I misjudged you.
Yeah.
Stephen said quietly. You did. Sal took a deep breath, processing everything that had just happened. Then he made a decision. The dojo. It's yours. I'm out. No more pressure. No more threats. The owner can do whatever he wants with it. Stephen's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes softened slightly. Smart move. Sal nodded once. Then he turned to his men. Clean this up. And get that kid home safely. One of Sal's guys approached the kid, speaking gently, reassuring him, checking if he was hurt. The police sirens were getting louder now. Seconds away, Sal looked at Stephen one last time. We're even now. No, Stephen said. We're done. Sal almost smiled. Then he and his men disappeared into the night through a back alley, moving like shadows, leaving no trace. Stephen stood there alone as the first police cars screeched around the corner, lights flashing. Detective Chen's voice crackled in his earpiece.
Stephen, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. We got everything.
The recording is perfect. Clear audio of Romano admitting to extortion threats, the works. Combined with what just happened, we have enough to bring charges. Stephen pulled the wire from his jacket and dropped it into his pocket. Good. Stephen, what you did tonight was what needed to be done. He hung up.
Likey, if you're absolutely hooked right now,
And comment your country.
let's see how far this story has reached.
Police officers swarmed the scene, shouting orders, securing the area, checking for casualties. Detective Chen arrived moments later, flashing her badge, taking control of the situation. She found Stephen standing near the kid, who was now wrapped in a blanket, talking to a paramedic. You all right? She asked Stephen. I've been better. She looked at the two unconscious shooters being handcuffed and loaded into ambulances. Revel crew. Yeah. Someone tried to take advantage of the meeting you told me about. Word must have leaked. Detective Chen's face darkened. Which means there's still a leak inside the department. Stephen looked at her. Or inside Romano's organization. She nodded slowly, processing the implications. Then she pulled out her phone and showed Stephen something. It was a text message from an unknown number, sent to Sal Romano's phone, which they'd been monitoring. Meeting compromised. Someone talked. Handle it. Stephen's jaw tightened. When was this sent? 20 minutes before the attack. So someone inside Romano's crew warned him. Or, Detective Chen said carefully, someone wanted him to think there was a traitor so he'd start eliminating his own people. Stephen was quiet for a moment. Then he said, this isn't over. No, Detective Chen agreed.
It's not. Comment note over if you need to know what happens next.
And I'll galar okai chafram. Drop it below. She handed Stephen a card. If you need anything, protection, legal help, anything, call me directly. Stephen pocketed the card. I can handle myself. I know you can. But this isn't just about you anymore. Sal knows you're involved now. And whoever ordered that hit tonight knows you stopped it. She paused. You're a target now, Mr. Seagal. Stephen looked at her calmly. I've been a target before. Not like this. He didn't respond. Detective Chen sighed. Just be careful. Please. Stephen nodded once, then he walked away, disappearing into the crowd of police and emergency responders. The kid now safe, now surrounded by people who would make sure he got home, called out,
Hey, mister.
Stephen stopped and turned. The kid jogged over, still shaking but trying to compose himself. I don't know who you are, but thank you, you saved my life. Stephen put a hand on the kid's shoulder. Stay out of trouble. And stay away from places like this. I will. I promise. The kid hesitated, then asked you, Are you somebody famous or something? Stephen smiled faintly. Just somebody who was in the right place at the right time. He walked away.
Lucky if that was powerful.
And comment where you're watching from. I want to see VRY country. But as Stephen got into his car and drove away from the scene, his phone buzzed. Another unknown number? Another message. He opened it. You cost us a lot of money tonight, Mr. Seagal. We don't forget. And we don't forgive. Stephen stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back. Neither do I. He hit send, started the engine, and drove into the night, knowing that the real fight was just beginning.
Type ready if you're prepared for what's coming next. And where are you from? Comment below.
2 days passed, 2 days of silence. No calls. No messages. Just nothing. And that made Stephen more nervous than any threat ever could. In his experience, silence didn't mean safety. It meant someone was planning. He stayed alert, kept his routines unpredictable, watched his surroundings, checked his mirrors, old habits from a life he'd tried to leave behind. But on the third night, everything changed. Stephen was driving home from the dojo, the same one he'd fought to protect, when he noticed the headlights behind him. Black SUV, tinted windows, staying exactly 3 car lengths back. He changed lanes. It changed lanes. He took a random turn. It followed. Likey this video if you can feel the tension. And comment where you're watching from. United States.
Canada? Mexico?
Germany? Australia?
Brazil, let me know. Steven's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He wasn't going to lead them to his home. Instead, he drove toward an industrial area near the waterfront, abandoned warehouses, empty lots, minimal lighting. A place where whatever was about to happen wouldn't endanger innocent people. He pulled into a large, empty parking lot surrounded by chain, link fences and rusted shipping containers, turned off the engine, and waited. The SUV pulled in 30 seconds later. Then another one, and another, 3 vehicles total, forming a semicircle around Steven's car, trapping him. Doors opened, 10 men stepped out. Not Sal's crew this time. These guys were different. Professional military bearing. Tactical gear under civilian clothes, hired professionals. At the center stood a man in an expensive suit, mid-40s, clean-cut, cold eyes. He walked forward slowly, confidently, stopping about 10 feet from Steven's car. Steven stepped out to meet him. The 2 men faced each other under the dim glow of a single flickering streetlight. Comments to WWN if you know this is about to get intense. And you wabdichf ram. Drop your location, Mr. Seagal, the man said, his voice smooth and cultured. My name is Marcus Sergen. I represent certain business interests that were negatively impacted by your actions 2 nights ago. Steven said nothing, just waited. Marcus smiled, but it was the smile of a snake. The men you stopped from completing their assignment. They worked for us. The financial losses from that failed operation. Substantial. The reputation damage. Even more costly. He took a step closer. In our line of work, Mr. Seagal, actions have consequences. I'm familiar with consequences, Steven said calmly. Are you? Marcus's smile widened. Because from where I'm standing, you've been playing hero without understanding who you're really dealing with. He gestured to the men surrounding them. Sal Romano is small time, a local operator, but the people I work for, they operate across state lines, international connections, unlimited resources. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed Steven a photo. It was the dojo, with kids inside training. Steven's jaw clenched, but his expression remained controlled. You threaten children, and you think that makes you powerful? Marcus laughed. I don't threaten, Mr. Seagal. I simply illustrate consequences. He swiped to another photo, Detective Chen, getting into her car outside NYPD headquarters. Everyone you care about, everyone you've tried to protect, they're all vulnerable.
Like if you're feeling the danger right now. And comment where you're from. I'm reading your location.
Steven took a slow breath. So what do you want? I want you to disappear. Leave New York. Tonight. Never come back. Never contact the police again. Never interfere in our operations again. Marcus pocketed his phone. Do that and everyone stays safe. Refuse. He didn't finish the sentence. Steven was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made Marcus's confidence falter. You made 3 mistakes tonight. Marcus frowned. Excuse me. First mistake. Steven said, his voice calm and steady. You assumed I came here alone. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Second mistake. You assumed I was afraid. Steven took a step forward. Marcus's men tensed, hands moving toward concealed weapons. And third mistake. You brought 10 men. Marcus laughed, nervous now. And that's a mistake because... Steven's eyes were ice. Because you're gonna need more.
Comment Savage if that line just gave you else. And
What happened next happened fast. One of Marcus's men moved first, reaching for his weapon. Steven was faster. He closed the distance in 2 steps, grabbed the man's wrist before the gun cleared the holster, and used a devastating wrist lock combined with a shoulder throw. The man flipped through the air and slammed into the pavement. 2 more rushed Steven from opposite sides. Steven ducked under the first punch, delivered a lightning, fast palm strike to the second attacker's solar plexus, then swept the first attacker's legs out from under him. Both went down hard, 3 down in less than 5 seconds. The remaining 7 spread out, circling him like wolves. Marcus backed away, shouting, Take him, do.
Likey if you're on the EDG, if you're your side.
And comment your country, let's see that global support. They came at him all at once. Steven moved like water, fluid, adaptive, using their momentum against them. A high kick came at his head. He deflected it, grabbed the leg, and took the attacker down with a throw. A tackle from behind. Steven dropped his weight, pivoted and sent the attacker tumbling over his shoulder. Another grabbed him in a bear hug. Steven drove his elbow back into the man's ribs, then executed a perfect hip throw. One pulled a baton and swung. Steven caught the arm mid-swing, twisted it into a joint lock, and disarmed him in one smooth motion. It was like watching a master class in Aikido. Every attack redirected, Every bit of aggression turned back on the attacker. No wasted movement. No excessive force. Just pure, efficient technique. Within 90 seconds, all 10 men were on the ground, groaning, dazed, disarmed. Stephen stood in the center of the circle, breathing hard but steady, not a scratch on him. Marcus stared in absolute shock. That's impossible. Stephen walked toward him slowly. Marcus stumbled backward, fear replacing his earlier confidence.
Wait, we can make a deal, money?
Whatever you want. Stephen stopped inches from his face. I already told you what I want. Leave the dojo alone. Leave Detective Chen alone. Leave this city. I can't just... Then your bosses will have to find a new representative. Stephen's voice was quiet but terrifying.
Because you're done. Common legend if Stephen just became your hero.
And Oriar Ouatitai from?
I need to know.
Sirens wailed in the distance. Detective Chen's voice came through the shadows.
Wapiti!
Nobody move. She emerged with a full tactical team, at least 15 officers, weapons drawn, surrounding the scene. Stephen had called her before he'd even arrived. This whole thing had been a setup. Marcus's face went pale as he realized he'd been played. You recorded everything. Stephen pulled out his phone. Every word, every threat. All of it going straight to the DA's office. Detective Chen walked up, slapping handcuffs on Marcus. Marcus Vega, you're under arrest for conspiracy, extortion, witness intimidation, and about 15 other charges I'm going to enjoy listing. She looked at Stephen. You okay? I've had worse Tuesdays. She almost smiled. Then she noticed the 10 men groaning on the ground. You did this. All of them? Stephen shrugged. They weren't very good.
Likely if that was the most badass thing you've seen.
And comment where you're from. I want our country represented. As the officers hauled Marcus and his crew away, Detective Chen walked Stephen back to his car. This isn't over, you know. Vega works for bigger fish. They'll send more. Let them. She studied his face. You're not scared at all, are you? Stephen looked at her. I stopped being scared a long time ago, detective. Now I'm just tired of people thinking fear is a weapon they can use. He opened his car door. The dojo stays open. The kids stay safe. And anyone who has a problem with that. He looked back at the men being loaded into police vans. They can end up like them. Detective Chen nodded slowly. You're a good man, Mr. Seagal. I'm just a man who knows the difference between right and wrong. He got in his car. And I'm not afraid to stand up for what's right. Comment Raspati if you believe in standing up for what's right. And Dachara Ruchij from. Let's light up the comments section. As Stephen drove away, Detective Chen watched him go. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. Captain, it's Chen, we got them. All of them. And we have enough evidence to take down the entire network. She paused, listening. How? Let's just say. We had help from someone who doesn't know how to back down. She smiled as Stephen's taillights disappeared into the night. Yeah, the dojo's safe. The kids are safe. And I think this neighborhood just got a little bit safer too. She hung up, and for the first time in 2 years of investigating, she felt like justice might actually win. Like this video if you believe in justice, and comment your location one more time. Let's see how many countries are watching this story. Stephen drove through the quiet streets, the adrenaline slowly fading from his system. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it. A message from the dojo owner. I don't know what you did, but thank you. The threat stopped. We're safe. The kids are safe. Thank you. Stephen smiled faintly. Then he typed back, just doing what needed to be done. Keep those kids training. Teach them discipline. Teach them respect. That's all that matters. He hit send and drove home, knowing that sometimes the quietest warriors make the loudest difference. 2 weeks later, the dojo reopened its doors. Not just reopened, it was transformed, fresh paint on the walls, new mats on the floor, repaired equipment, even a small expansion into the space next door that had been sitting vacant for years. Donations had poured and once word spread about what had happened. Local businesses contributed. Community members volunteered. Parents who'd pulled their kids out brought them back, and on opening day, the place was packed. Kids filled the mats, laughing, training, learning discipline, learning respect, learning that strength isn't just about how hard you can hit. It's about standing up when it would be easier to walk away. Stephen stood in the doorway watching it all, arms crossed, face calm. But there was satisfaction in his eyes. The owner, Mr. Chen, a 60-year-old former Marine who dedicated his life to teaching martial arts, walked up beside him. I still don't know how to thank you for what you did. Stephen shook his head slightly. You don't have to thank me. Just keep these doors open. Keep teaching these kids what really matters. Like this video if you believe in second chances and protecting what matters. And comment where you're watching from. One final time, let me know. Mr. Chen smiled, his eyes glistening slightly. You know, most of these kids, they come from rough neighborhoods, broken homes. They don't have a lot of role models showing them a better way. He gestured to the mats where a young girl, maybe 12 years old, was practicing a throw with perfect form. That's Maria. Her father's in prison. Her mom works 3 jobs. This place. This is the only stability she has. He pointed to a boy in the corner, helping a younger student with his stance. That's David. He was headed toward a gang 6 months ago. Now, he wants to be a sensei someday. Stephen watched them train, watched them grow, watched them learn, and he knew, without a shadow of doubt, that everything he'd done, every risk he'd taken, every fight he'd fought, it was worth it. You gave them more than a dojo, Mr. Seagal, Mr. Chen said quietly. You gave them hope. Stephen looked at him. No, you did that. I just made sure nobody took it away. Comment Hoppy if you believe that's what the world needs more of. And Dubafar, you each other from. Drop it below. Mr. Chen extended his hand. Stephen shook it firm, respectful, the handshake of 2 warriors who understood what it meant to fight for something bigger than themselves. Then Stephen turned to leave. Wait. Mr. Chen called out. Will we see you again? Stephen paused at the doorway, looking back one last time, at the kids, at the mats, at the life and energy filling a space that had almost been destroyed. Maybe, he said with a faint smile. If you need me. And then he walked out quietly. No fanfare, no applause, no headlines. Just a man who did what was right. Because real strength isn't about how many fights you win. It's about standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. It's about protecting the innocent when everyone else looks away. It's about knowing that respect isn't given based on power or money or fear. It's earned through actions, through character, through doing the right thing even when no one's watching. Like if you believe respect is earned, not given. And comment your location one last time. Stephen got into his car and sat there for a moment, watching through the window as the kids continued their training. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Detective Chen. Vega's talking. His bosses are going down federal charges. You did it. Thank you. Stephen typed back, you did it. Justice isn't one person. It's everyone who refuses to look away. He hit send, started the engine, and as he drove away, he passed a young kid, maybe 16, walking down the street toward the dojo, a new jai folded under his arm, hope in his eyes. The same kid Stephen had saved during the shootout. The kid who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, who'd nearly died, but who was now walking into the dojo to start his first class, to learn discipline, to learn respect, to learn that he could be more than his circumstances. Stephen smiled and drove on. Type respect in the comments if you believe humility is real strength. And tell me Nabuchar you watching from. I want to thank every single person who made it to the end. If you made it all the way to the end, seriously thank you. This story isn't just about fighting or action or taking down bad guys. It's about something deeper. It's about standing up when it's easier to walk away. It's about protecting those who can't protect themselves. It's about understanding that true power is silent and true respect is earned. More stories like this are coming. Real lessons, real strength, real respect. Let me know in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. Was it the street confrontation with Vince? The moment Stephen met Sal Romano? When he took down all 10 men in the parking lot? Or the ending with the kids at the dojo? Your feedback helps us create even better content for you. Type RESPECT if you believe humility is real power. And one final time, tell me where you're watching from. I read every single comment. Whether you're in New York, London, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Tokyo, Lagos, Sydney, Toronto, Manila, or anywhere else in the world, I want to know you are here. Stay strong, stay humble, stay true to what's right, and remember the quietest person in the room is often the most dangerous, but also the most powerful. I'll see you in the next one.